Some places hold time differently. Gwaii Onagai is one of them, and it's known to the Haida as, I guess the translation would be Red Cod Town. But this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's resting on a place that was a once powerful longhouses and carved mortuary poles, and it slowly weathered into the earth. And in this episode, I take you into this extraordinary location at the southern tip of Gwaii Haanas, where cedar tells stories older than Canada, and silence speaks volumes. I also speak with Teresa Russ, who's actually one of the watchmen here, and her role is not only to protect the site, but to help us see it through a cultural lens of respect and continuity. So thanks for joining me today.
No worries.
Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you, if you've ever dreamed of experiencing one of the incredible destinations that we talk about on the show, be sure to visit farandawayadventures.com. For over 30 years, I've helped travelers discover some of the most extraordinary destinations on Earth. If this is of interest, check out the link in the description to farandawayadventures.com, and we'd be happy to make your next trip unforgettable.
Teresa, can you just tell me a little bit about this unique destination and why people come from all over the world to see it?
So the Haidas have always been a very strong and powerful group of First Nations people, but one of the things that we've done very well for ourselves is our art form. Haida formline has always been known up and down the coast, and at the time of contact, it was even brought into places like Europe, across the waters into Japan and stuff like that. A lot of people really love the depth that we have in our artwork and our formline and in our culture. We always we always do things in a very powerful and a very determined way. And I think that draws in a lot of people, just knowing, how big the Haida people were at one time. Some of the things that we do within our culture that are different from a lot of places, gains a lot of interest from people wondering how we carried on in the ways that we did, especially when you're looking at really harsh climates and harsh areas that we're in. We're in villages like this, we're always fogged in, we're always dealing with rain, we're at the mercy of the weather and the tide here. So I think it's really interesting for a lot of people to come in and experience how well we lived in such a harsh place.
Yeah, and of all the various sites that there are, of the historic sites, this is probably one of the most well-preserved sites as far as some of the carvings and other things, is it not?
Yeah, so the people of Gwaii didn't move out of here until they had to during the time of the smallpox epidemic. So it was still functioning very well at the time of first contact and things like that. There's a lot of information from areas like this that have been recorded, and yeah, we still have a lot of the poles and a couple of the house pits and stuff that are still available to see today. So it's definitely more than what you see in most of our other village sites.
Yeah. And I guess tell me a little bit about how you first started out working in these sites or in this particular site.
So the first time that I was in Gwaii Haanas, or a village within Gwaii Haanas, was when I was less than a year old. I believe I was around 6 or 7 months old. My parents always made sure that culture was taught to us. We were always taught how to food harvest, how to go out and harvest cedar, how to practice formline and weaving and all that type of stuff. So they really wanted to emphasize how important it is to know your culture, your clan, all those types of things. So they brought us down into Tanu, which is my ancestral village, from the Haida Gwaii clan, the Raven Wolf clan of Tanu. So my mom brought us down there, taught us a little bit more about what it truly means to be Haida in the sense of actually being down here, being on the land base and living in that type of way. From there, growing up, we spent quite a bit of time in other village sites. We've spent a few months in Skiakauga, Windy Bay, a few months down here in Gwaii, and kind of all throughout, even our time off from Gwaii Haanas, we were always out doing these types of things. So it really developed a love and an interest in me and my siblings for being out here and continuing on with that same way that we grew up in.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see that you've kind of grown up here and now you're able to come back and share some of the knowledge that you gained as a child.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing it through the eyes of a grown-up as well. You know, when I'm down here as a kid, we didn't have any of the responsibilities that we do now. We still helped out with, you know, maintaining trails and taking care of what the remains that we do still have left in the village. But it was more of we were able to, we didn't have to. Nowadays, coming down here, you know, you're looking at taking care of not only the main village itself, the poles, everything like that, but also making sure that you're still keeping up with your chores at camp. And you know, getting out on, when you get out on the boat, it's not so much about going out to explore, running around on the rocks. You actually have to pay attention to, you know, the tides, the wind, the weather, all that type of stuff. It really goes to show just how interested and how big of an important role it was for my parents to actually get us out here. I have a hard time sometimes with me and the other watchmen down here when, you know, we're all busy throughout the days and stuff. I can't imagine doing it with 3 kids and raising them from such a young age down here in these camps. Like they did a great job with it, but it's very remote. Yeah,
and the weather can really lock you in too at times. Well, what do you think that visitors can see here that really speaks most deeply to the Haida culture?
I think the biggest thing that you see here in these sites is the interconnectedness. You know, in Haida culture, we always believe that everything depends on everything else. It's just a way of saying that we're all surrounded by things that make our life function the way that they do, and we always have to pay yakudang or respect to that. And when you go into these village sites and you see the way that the Haidas, especially at that time, have lived, you really get a sense of how close connected they were to everything. You know, our terrestrial beings are the animal kingdom that we lived right beside. You know, they're the beings that we see in the water and the sea realm that, you know, everything that we do always depicted them or pulled them in some type of way, and really shows that interconnectedness that we had to have to thrive the way that we did on this landscape.
And I mean, I just heard a whale right back there. So, I mean, you're really interconnected with the land and the sea. It's great to see. Now, do you know how this particular site came to be part of the UNESCO sites?
So it was one of the sites that when some of our elders were first coming into, they realized how well preserved it was, and they really wanted to maintain that and to show people like who we are, the things that we were capable of doing, you know, the ways that we lived. And with it being, like I said, one of the most preserved sites, it kind of just became a site that we knew right away. Like, even if we weren't able to get all of the other village sites within the South Moresby Agreement, or in present day, the Gwaii Haanas Agreement, we wanted to make sure that this area was protected. The Gwaii Haanas Agreement, and which originated from the South Moresby Agreement, didn't come into effect after the stand in Lyall Island. So we were already working on a way to figure out how to protect these areas. That came in after and protected the whole span of Gwaii Haanas. But because there was already things in motion for getting protection on village sites independently, Gwaii was the first one, and UNESCO stepped in to help with the protection of it.
And what has that done for this particular site?
I mean, it offers up funding and different things like that. It also allowed us to get more information out there about what is still here. It allowed people to, through certain publications, through UNESCO and things like that, they were able to see that, you know, these village sites are still here. We never abandoned our village sites. We just relocated to an area where we could regain the population that we once had. So we wanted to make sure people knew, like, it's still here. We're still here as a nation. Our village sites are still here, and we're still living in the same ways that we did back then. You know, things are a lot different now, but that doesn't mean that we're not still living in the same way that we did as even our old ancestors that lived in some of these villages. So it was more so about once we had protection on it, then it was come and see this. Like, we wanted to share what we have, especially after the time of residential schools and day schools and all those things like that. We wanted to show people we're a strong, resilient people we're still here. Come and see what we are. Understand who we were, the things that we were doing. You know, they really tried to make us seem like really bad people back in those times. They tried to make it seem like the things that we were doing and the way we were living was unnatural. So when it came to the time after everything that had happened, we wanted to bring people in and say, you know what, come and see who we actually are. Come and see how we actually live compared to just listening to some of these, you know, things that are being said about us that aren't being done in the right way.
Well, you know, I find that's, you know, coming here and learning from the local Haida people, it's a really neat experience because you can tell that they really love sharing their culture and what this place has to offer, both on, you know, as far as the land, the sea, the spirituality, and the ancestors of this place. Now, I was wondering, what do first-time visitors usually, what are some common remarks that they give you about coming to this place?
A lot of people have had it on their bucket lists for years. You know, we have a lot of elders and things that are coming through that have said, oh, I've heard about this place for 20, 30, 40 years, and I've always wanted to come here. It's so remote. I mean, Haida Gwaii in general is a remote place to get to.
Yeah.
So getting to Haida Gwaii and then also getting to one of the most remote parts of Haida Gwaii is a very big trip for a lot of people. So we get a lot of excited people saying, you know, like, I've watched this from afar for, you know, however many years, and it's just now that I've gotten the opportunity to do it. It's really interesting to see. Us as Haida people, I mean, we've always been pretty far out there. A lot of people know about us, so it's really interesting when they actually make it here and they're able to say, you know, we've watched you guys for however many years. We've seen the stand at Lyall Island. We've seen the designation of Gwaii Haanas, all these other things. Then they finally get here, and then you walk them into the village, and it's like you could really tell, like, it was worth their while to actually get here and to experience it in person. All of our village sites have some type of feeling to them.
Is
Even
there
if
a
it's
specific spot that moves people emotionally?
Probably the first site of the village. When you come around the corner going into the village and you see all the mortuary poles still standing there, and you're standing on the same beach that they had once inhabited here, a lot of people are really breathtaken by that view. It's actually, even on our tours, one of the areas where we'll be like, all right, take a minute, enjoy it, soak it in, take your pictures, and then we'll continue on, because so many people are kind of like starstruck by it. They'll stop, and, you know, it's hard to carry on for a tour right away when they want to kind of sit there and soak it in. So I'd say that's definitely one of the
And is there anything in particular that you hope people take away from this place when they leave?
I'd say for sure, like, I just want people to acknowledge, like, we are still here, we are still strong, but we, you know, we're still studying these villages just like everybody else that's coming to visit. You know, we're still trying to come back from the effects of colonization, of smallpox, of residential schools, and being down here and doing this it's great and it's amazing. But at the same time, there's that harsh reality that we have to think back to on, you know, the fact that this village should have continued to go on for this last 250 years. So I'd say the biggest takeaway is just, you know, yakudang, show it to all things, all living things, all, you know, inanimate things. Just have respect for everybody the way that our ancestors had that same type of respect, that belief that everything depends on everything else, and we've always got to be watching out for one another and to not let those things happen again, so that we could continue to maintain our culture and our livelihoods in the same way that everybody else gets to.
Well, and I find it interesting too that nature has a way of showing us and teaching us some things about the history of this place. A number of years ago, there was a big windstorm that turned over trees.
Yeah, in
lifted
2018, we had about 100 trees in the back end of Gwaii that had come up.
And with all those trees that came up, it lifted up some of the floorboards and some of the places. And while it hadn't been disturbed prior to that, it enabled people to find artifacts that were kind of hidden in
They had
the
actually
ground.
found over 2,000 trade beads, a couple of stone carvings, and I believe there was more in there, but those were the most predominant things that I seen after that was lifted up. So it's pretty interesting to see, even just, you know, thinking about what things would have fallen beneath those floorboards has always been
Yeah.
something I've wondered as we go through these villages. So seeing that being lifted up is pretty interesting. I mean, it's our belief that once things start to go back to the earth, we don't interfere with that. We don't stop it. So it's really interesting when nature itself shows us some of those things.
Yeah, and we get to learn, like you say, the Haida people and other people are continuing to learn about these places, and nature itself teaches us some things too, which kind of brings it around full circle. But, well, thank you so much for taking some time to share with me a little bit about this beautiful destination in the most remote part of Haida Gwaii. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Discover your next unforgettable journey at farandawadventures.com. Experience the world differently.